Daniel Okulitch is a Canadian bass baritone who has made a name for himself on the world stage. La Scala, Teatro Colón, Los Angeles Opera, performing traditional and new works. He's in Winnipeg performing one of his signature roles, the title character in Mozart's Don Giovanni with Manitoba Opera. Daniel Okulitch has joined me in the Diamond Lane for a conversation. Hey, welcome back to Winnipeg.
The Diamond Lane.
The Diamond Lane. It's a good name, huh?
I feel this is wonderful.
It's exciting to have you here. You've been pretty busy the last few years, hey?
Yeah, I have. I was commenting to a friend that I am on the road 10 months of this year, and I don't think I've done the math on last year, but yeah, I just kind of jumping gig to gig or maybe having 5 to 10 days off in between. So yeah, a lot of time on the road, but it feels pretty natural to me now. I have no idea. What's it like having a job where you get up and
it's pretty consistent, I'm not going to lie.
You know, it's...
I think it's less glamorous, though. How do you go about navigating that? I mean, you're on the road for 10 months of the year. You must be a good packer.
I'm a terrible packer. I'm a great unpacker.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Every time I have to pack, I get this really sort of sad feeling, oh, gosh. I mean, I always hate that aspect of it, and I procrastinate, and I take forever to do it. And then eventually I end up having 2 hours of sleep because I'm up and I can't decide what to bring and I can't remember. I'm efficient. I'm not efficient, but I know what to bring. Let's put it that way. And it just takes me a long time.
That's a talent in and of itself as far as
it's really, there are moments of glamour and then a lot of time watching cat videos when you're back in your hotel room.
So rather than the cat videos, speaking of the glamour, just reading through the recent highlights on the tab on your website, I mean, there are return performances with companies on both sides of the Atlantic, a few debuts thrown in, the cover of Opera News. I mean, that's one of the most prestigious opera magazines on the planet. I need to ask, how does it feel to be one of the bass baritones singing today?
You know, I mean, that's very flattering. I mean, that's you really and truly at this point, you count yourself lucky if you're working.
Yeah.
Really, it's if you are consistently working and making a living, you are part of a very small percentile. I won't say 1% because that sounds very, I don't know how that sounds, but the fact is you are truly blessed and fortunate if you are getting to do projects that interest you, that you feel are challenging you, and that you have that's consistent. And I really am lucky because I get a balance of the classic repertoire that I really enjoy, but also a lot of really innovative new work that stretches me, and I feel on the cutting edge, or get to be occasionally on the cutting edge of how opera is growing in the 21st century.
Well, can we talk a little bit about that new and traditional? Because I was curious about that as well. I mean, it's one of the things that stands out to me when reading through your bio is that you've established yourself as a champion of new works, working with composers like Nico Mulia and Jake Heggie, but also being a renowned interpreter of Mozart. How do you bridge the gap?
Well, this was in a way a strategy that I kind of had from the beginning of my career, which was I really love singing in English. I really love doing new work because you get a chance to put your stamp on a role that no one has done before. So there's no one out there telling you that you're doing it wrong. And for a brief window of time, you are the best person in the world doing that role. So
it's got to be rewarding.
It doesn't last necessarily, but for a brief window of time, you're that person. But if all you do is new repertoire, then the fact remains most companies are not, their bread and butter is the classics, the Verdi, Puccini, the Mozart, and all that. So the strategy always was maybe brand myself or get noticed by doing and being good at the new works. But then you always have to maintain your street cred, if you will, by doing a lot of the classic rep. And I love the classic repertoire as well, but there's something so immediate about doing new works and singing in your own language. So if I do too much new music, which can be quite angular, vocally, I always try to make sure that somewhere in my schedule there's a Mozart, a Handel, a Bach, something that really gets you back to the core principles of singing with line and lyricism, and it can be quite an adjustment sometimes if it's a really abrupt transition from one gig to the next.
Just thinking about it, I mean, a lot of new music singers are also really solid old school singers, if you will. You know, they have that solid foundation on which they can build so that they can get to that more angular aspect that you referenced just a moment ago. But yeah, like you said, it's got to be exciting to just be the first person to get on a stage and be like, this is me.
It can be terrifying too. I did Brokeback Mountain a few years ago and reprised it just this year in New York City. And that was the hardest music I've ever had to learn. It was really challenging. And I remember when I first was vying to get the role and then got the music, this dread just dropping into my stomach going, I don't know if I can do this. And it's in those moments I've learned that if I feel that, I definitely should do this project. If I'm feeling kind of, yeah, this will be easy, it's probably not for me. I need to feel that there's this not insignificant chance that I could really fail.
Yeah, put it all on the line.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, wow. So here you are in Winnipeg performing a staple, not a new work, but one of the great works in the canon, Mozart's Don Giovanni, singing the title character. This is one of your signature roles. I'm just curious, how many times have you sung the role of Don G? Ballpark.
Ballpark, maybe 12 different productions.
How do you keep it fresh when you've sung it so many times?
Well, a lot of that comes down to the production that you're in.
Yeah.
And the demands of the director and the people you're with. You never want to just phone it in and do what you did in every other production. There are certain things, if it's a standard sort of production, there's no really, radical take on the plot or the perspective, then there are certain marks that you got to hit. You know?
Yeah.
But otherwise, the way to keep it fresh is really pay attention and be present with the people who are on stage with you and what they're giving you, as opposed to, this is how I do it, this is how I do the scene. No. It's always an interplay. It's always an exchange between you, the conductor, and all the other people who are singing, and then what the director has in mind. So, and also, it's as an iconic role, you're never going to be done with it.
No.
I'm never going to sing it perfectly. So there's always things I get done with the rehearsal, go, man, I didn't quite do that thing that I really wanted, or vocally, I wish I could do that better. So you're always striving to not backslide and to make it just a little better this time, somehow, in some way, dramatically, musically, vocally. Just you got to choose one at least that's going to be better today.
Well, as we just heard in the commercial right before we got into this interview, I mean, he is one of the most lecherous lovers, as it says in the commercial. And I'm just curious, like, in today's day and age, in a time with a long overdue light being shined on those who really abuse power, has that changed your interpretation of Don G at all? Or how do you approach that?
I don't think it's changed my interpretation as much as I think people look at him differently.
Yeah.
And so your relationship to the audience is just changed due to what's happening in society at any given moment. And that, I don't think in that sense that's different than any other year or any other era. Who Don Giovanni was back in the day when it was composed he was perceived very differently. It was because the social structure was different. Now in today's day and age, it's very current. It's very potent because of Me Too and because of all of the reckoning that's happening for people abusing powers in North America, Western culture. That's really a big topic. And I think it just brings up images to see this character that feel very immediate. His motivations haven't changed, though. They really haven't. You have someone who's entitled. You have someone who is clueless about, he isn't empathetic. He's only empathetic in the sense that as long as he can figure out kind of what you want, he can then manipulate you into what he wants.
He doesn't really have a redeemable quality.
Maybe he's just misunderstood, man. No. In his mind, he is. He has this great little section of text where he talks about how, how could I choose but one? If I choose one, then I'm unfair to all the others. And they just think that I'm being, he defends himself in this beautiful little moment of respite, which is very illuminating as to his mindset. I think when it was written, especially before anything was ever thought of in terms of women actually having autonomy,
yeah.
I mean, his crimes were viewed not in terms of, look at him violating that woman's autonomy, as much as it was, look at him abusing his noble power and his general lechery being a sin against God.
Yeah.
Now that we're in a time where fewer and fewer people would see the lechery as a sin against God, we see it more as a misogynistic sort of approach to sex. He sees himself as a great lover, and there are women in his conquests who would agree, who he did make feel good. But, I've done some productions where the director wanted me to take an approach, and this isn't one of them, where he was truly a sociopath. And the reason was, I think in this day and age, unless you see him as a real brute, as a real sociopath, then how are we supposed to justify the fact that he gets dragged to hell? Because we see it everywhere now. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that someone That's a take, but it's not one that I personally gravitate towards.
It's a director's take, right?
Yeah.
And that is a choice that they make. I think I remember reading once, long ago, when shortly after the work premiered, they didn't even do the whole hell scene. Not to spoiler alert everything here, but like the ending itself was kind of cut and adapted, whereas it's kind of made a return and a resurgence to see that.
Well, actually, what would happen is in one version they cut the epilogue, which had all the tying up all the little loose ends of all the other characters. Instead of just it ends when he gets dragged to hell. That is it.
End scene.
End scene and curtain comes down, because it kind of feels like an ending. You know? And I'm sure people would wander away going, what happened to that person?
Yeah, exactly.
But no one really cares.
So the last thing I want to ask you is about this production. I mean, I've seen some teasers online. It looks very dramatic. This is a new production. It opened just last year. Here it is in Manitoba Opera. What can you tell us about this set, about this production?
Sure.
I mean, I know there's fire. That's what I know about. That's very thrilling.
There are some hellish flames. There are a few succubi demonesses who come out. But really, it's our director really wanted to focus on he is Spanish and the Spanish element. So Don Giovanni is a matador. He
is Don Juan.
He is Don Juan. He is absolutely. And so the social status that the matador has within when we're setting it, which is slightly modernized, is something that feels very understandable and relatable. The celebrity of it, the social power, the arrogance, the confidence, all of that sort of thing is just flows seamlessly into Don Giovanni. So we have a slightly updated version of this, very sort of crimson and black set pieces and costumes, and incorporating some of the moves of the matador into some of the choreography. Very mild, but that's the take they're going for. And I think it works very, very well to have a slightly updated version like this, with an iconic sort of not stereotype, but just an iconic idea like the matador.
That sounds like a great show.
It's going to be loads of fun.
Daniel Okulitch, thanks for coming into the Diamond Lane.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it so much. If you want to go see Daniel Okulitch performing Mozart at the top of his game, Don Giovanni runs Saturday, November 24th, Tuesday, November 27th, and Friday, November 30th at the Centennial Concert Hall. For more information, visit mbopera.ca or head to classic107.com and click on the events tab.